There's something exciting about your 20s. You're just starting to make some money, you're just starting to live fully independently, and the world is relatively new to you. For the majority of people, their 20s is a low-risk, high-rewards time in their life. So to take full advantage of your 20s, there are certain mistakes you want to avoid. Hello. My name is Munez. I'm a coding bootcamp graduate working as a software engineer at a Fortune 50 company. And on this channel, I help people break into software engineering. In this video, I want to share some of the biggest mistakes I've made in my 20s. And I'm not talking about not investing in Bitcoin early or budgeting my life or writing down my goals, although those are very important. But before you can do those things, it's important that you have a nuanced level of competency before you can do those things that will in fact empower you to do those things. Mistake number one, not trusting my gut. I think in today's day and age, there's a lot of emphasis on data, analytics, and logic. Although these things are important, but I think sometimes in our personal lives, these can be overvalued. In fact, they're kind of put on this pedestal. By the time you're in your early to mid 20s, you've gone through high school, you've gone through college, and you're just starting out to work. And I believe that by this time in your life, you've been through enough social situations that you kind of built an internal compass. And this compass is your intuition. It kind of tells you what's right, what's wrong, and more importantly, it tells you what's good for you and what's bad for you. Learning to lean into your intuition and trust your gut in your 20s can lead you to lifelong success and lifelong happiness. Think about the many personal decisions that don't require logic or data or analytics. Think about brand loyalty. What brands do you wear? Why are you loyal to them? Think about the school you attended to. Think about the person you'll marry. These aren't decisions based off of logic. And in fact, these decisions should not be based on logic. Because I believe if you make these decisions based off logic, in the long term, you won't be as happy. For example, think about iPhone versus Android. Why do iPhone users look down upon Android users? Think about Sony and Xbox. Why are some people loyal to Sony? Why are some people loyal to Xbox? Also, leaning into your intuition and learning to trust your gut forces you to think critically. You're not necessarily following someone's predefined notion of what success looks like. It forces you to deeply think about why things are the way they are. For example, when I wanted to switch careers, a lot of people were saying that I need to go back to school and get my master's. And whenever I told them about a boot camp that said that's not a safe option, that is not the way you should go, it doesn't make sense for me to do a boot camp. By leaning to my intuition and trusting my gut, that the boot camp just made more sense to me. And it made me realize why are some things the way they are. It made me realize why are these people suggesting masters versus a boot camp. But in any case, I leaned into my intuition, I learned to trust my gut, and went with a boot camp, and ended up benefiting me a lot more than a master's. And if you're interested in learning about my story, check out this video, the link somewhere over here. Mistake number two, comparing myself to others. And because it's a nuanced topic, you want to approach it in a balanced way. And the best way to achieve balance is to understand why things are the way they are. Now, no one will disagree with me when I say that for centuries on end, humans have built communities and built societies where people depend on each other. And in fact, it's what allowed us to get to where we are as a species today. But I would say because we're social creatures, we play social games. One of these social games is this game of status. And status is a zero-sum game, meaning if I want to be more higher status, you have to be inherently be lower status, meaning there can never be more than one number one. And if you want to be number two, then someone has to come out of number two slot into number three. But when you play this game of status, there's a lot of comparison happening. And we all do it on a very micro level as well, whether it be consciously or subconsciously. Now, I'm not saying this is a bad thing inherently, but I think we should in fact be comparing ourselves to people with substance with the intention of self-improvement. I'm not saying go follow Timmy on social media and compare every aspect of his life to your life. What I'm saying is find people in your social circle who are of substance. And a perfect quote that comes to mind is, small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, and great minds discuss ideas. And you want to be in this last group of people. And find friends in your social circle that do the same. Also, a lot of times, social media gets a bad rap. Social media is just a tool. You can curate a list of people who you want to follow. You can follow your friends, you can follow celebrities, or you can follow people who actually bring value to you. And in this situation, I would say Instagram is probably more of a social friends thing. Although you can find accounts to follow that are of substance, motivational quotes and stuff like that. But I think a better thing for you, if you want to curate a list, is Twitter. Twitter, you're allowed to make lists, you're allowed to follow people more accurately, curate a list of people who you want to follow based on who they are, where they're going, and where you want to get. A big part of not comparing yourself is to understand who you are as a person. I think early on in life, through high school, college, you're still figuring it out. In your 20s, where you're finally solidifying who you are and where you want to be. But if you're anything like me, you're still not sure in your 20s exactly what you want to do, that's totally okay. You should be exploring things in your 20s. And this brings me to my next mistake I made, not understanding or realizing how much time I actually have. In my 20s, I've always felt that I had no time at all. But I want to take you through some calculations. So let's say you have about 24 hours in a day, right? Of those 24 hours, it takes maybe you work for 8 hours and you sleep for another 8 hours. So that's about 2/3 of your life right there, right? So you're left with another 8 hours. And within these 8 hours, you still have to commute back and forth from work. You still have to cook and clean, right? You still have to do your personal hygiene stuff like go to the bathroom, shower, brush your teeth, make a routine, facial routine, all that stuff. Let's say in the morning you cook your breakfast, in the evening you cook your dinner, and then clean up, dishes and stuff like that. It takes you an average of 2 hours a day as well. 2 hours to cook, 2 hours to commute. And then you also need to use the bathroom in the morning, use the bathroom at night, shower, brush your teeth, all that stuff. So you have, that takes, let's say, an average of 2 hours, right? Total of 5 hours out of your 8 hours that you actually need to do things. So you're left with 3 hours at the end of the day. Depending on who you ask, it's maybe a lot, maybe it's not a lot. For me, when I was working in my 20s, 3 hours a day is not a lot, right? You still want to wind down, relax, watch some Netflix, watch some, games online. Let's look at your weekend now. Let's say you have 48 hours total in your weekend. Of those 48 hours, you want to sleep in on the weekend. So let's say you sleep in 10 hours a day instead of 8 hours. So 10 times 2 is 20. On the weekend is probably when a lot of people run errands like, grocery shopping, taking your car to the shop, any other thing, right? So let's say it takes you an average of 4 hours a weekend to run errands. You're left with 24 hours. Now, within these 24 hours, you're probably commuting to friends and families, to grocery store, from the stores, any other things. Let's say total of 4 hours you're commuting on a weekend, average of 4 hours. You're left with 20 hours. Within these 20 hours, you are now want to chill, you want to relax with your friends, hang out with family. Let's say an average of 5 hours you spend Saturday night with friends. Let's say 5 hours with family on Sundays, maybe 3 hours. Let's just say 3 hour brunch time, right? And you have 8, so that's leaves you with 12 hours weekend time. And it's not mentioning like showering and getting ready. Let's say an average 2 hours a day it took us. Multiply that by 2, so you're left with 8 to 9 hours of weekend time. Total of 3 hours plus 9 hours throughout the week, which is it a lot of time? I don't know. For me, I think it's something you need to answer yourself. But the point of this exercise is to allow you to, or force you to think about where is your time going. In your 20s, I don't think anyone really does this, or very few people do this. And how do you be productive outside of work and normal necessity things? And I think a lot of this comes from time management, or learning to own your time. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I made in my 20s, is not understanding how much time you actually have. When you write something like this down, you realize, okay, where's my time going? What are my priorities? And you start to internalize the idea of time being your most valuable asset. Assess your time will help you to understand where you are and where you want to go. But yeah, these are the 3 biggest mistakes I've made in my life. 1, not trusting my gut or learning to lead into my intuition. 2, comparing myself to everyone, where in fact I should be only comparing myself to a select few of people with substance with the intention of self-improvement. And number 3, not understanding where my time is going and not understanding the idea of time management. But what's interesting about mistakes is that they're somewhat paradoxical, meaning obviously you don't want to make too many mistakes in your life because it takes time and energy and resources to recuperate from them. But without mistakes, you're not really growing. And what I've been thinking about is, if I didn't make these mistakes, who shaped me to be who I am today? What mistakes would I have been making? And how would that have shaped me any differently? But in any case, mistakes aren't the end of the world. For the longest time, I always believed that I needed to be perfect. But living this constant fear of making mistakes is no way to live. But also living without liking this video and subscribing is also no way to live. So go out there and live your life. I'll see you guys in the next one.